Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
This discussion is more about maybe remembering some of the issues we discussed yesterday. I think we talked about multi-stakeholders and what benefits that each stakeholder wants out of the project is quite different. And so we talked about positively affected people and negatively affected people, or people in the construction phase or people in the operation phase. Another way of categorizing, I think, the complexity here is directly involved or indirectly involved, or direct and indirect benefits. The conversation we've been having up until now before the break, I think, is very much focused on the direct benefits of the commuter, of the user. So they can save time, they can save some money compared to the train or whatnot. So I want to, again, ask you to soften your brains a little bit and think about the more indirect benefits that we can see from an HSR line. And I think you'll be repeating a lot of the things you said yesterday already. So just remind yourself about how complicated this project is. So even though HSR projects are so expensive and it's actually very hard to recover the initial investment cost just from operational revenue, why are we still investing in these services? Japan and India is considering it. I think here, this is where the argument will come in that there are a lot of indirect benefits associated with HSR development, also known as spillover effects. So let's try and have a quick discussion. I'll say 5 minutes this time, 5 minutes. Just a quick discussion. Once again, remind yourself of the conversation yesterday. And then I think, once again, you'll help me introduce the next couple slides where I describe some indirect benefits of the high-speed rail. So let's have a little discussion for 5 minutes. What kind of other indirect benefits, not just for the commuter, what kind of indirect benefits do we think Indian stakeholders can enjoy from a functioning high-speed rail line? Okay, please discuss. Okay. So yeah, I don't want to spend too much time. I think we had this discussion a little bit yesterday as well. So I'll just think about some similar ideas coming out from the group. Would you like to just share some with me quickly? Yeah, we'll start over here. Can you pass them the microphone, please? Oh, here, you can pass it to them, I guess. Then.
So, according to the indirect benefits, so land prices will be increased. So, like surrounding to the HSR, so that will be increased. And one more, like academics, like we are sponsored from Chennai metros, like that. So HSR may be sponsored some engineers to pursue courses, so the academic will be increased, booming, and the tourism will be increased. So, and the commercial zones which will be developed nearby the HSR, so eventually it will increase the India's development, economic development. So then particularly industry booming, like mechanical manufacturing industries. So it will lead to a lot of employment. Construction industry also booming with respect to that. Eventually it reducing the unemployment. And when which government is going to implement these policies, so they will be getting familiarized and the popularized, like so. Then research and developments for the technological updation or innovation, we can say like that.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah. Sorry.
We're running out. Are you guys running out of things to say, right?
Oh.
Or- okay. Any missing? Are we missing any final?
No. One thing will be that being this much large country, still India is not on the map of the highest speed rail. Whenever we talk, it is not. So it will improve the country image also.
Okay. Yeah, as a modern,
As a kind
as
of
a
that India is
leader
also
in the
developing
international.
perceived branding,
Okay.
which will
Yeah,
help
which
other
could
things.
increase foreign investments.
Increase.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That looks pretty. That looks pretty comprehensive.
Sir, one thing also that can happen like initially all the technology need to import it from the countries where HSR is right now underway. So that thing happens where we got the technology and then we learned how to make those products. So this make in India or make it in the own country, that trend will start in terms of HSR, and then we can help the underdeveloped nation to supply those machinery related to HSR.
Okay, yeah. So importers might be, will become an exporter, or importers are winning first, but benefiting first. But then once the capacity is nurtured here, they can start exporting as well. Yeah, excellent.
And
Yes.
other thing that might after effect that you also explained, the environmental footprints. In a longer run, we can see some of the environmental benefits that uh, green world or sort of thing where we have a less CO2 emissions than the other transport mode. Then we can get a government subsidies as well to make or expand the projects and all.
Okay, that's excellent. Yes, something.
Like this sharing of resources, like in one state we have more resources, it could be water, it could be any resource which is not there in the other state, so that
Okay.
can happen through
So
business.
connecting states, regions with, I don't know, comparative advantages or resources. Yeah, like better distribution and sharing of resources.
Somewhere we have labors,
efficiently.
but
Yeah,
we don't have
labor.
labors.
Yeah.
in
So
some
mobility is, and accessibility of not just, I guess, resources, but maybe human resources as well, if we think in terms of labor. Okay.
Advantage to last mile connectivity. Increase in last mile connectivity.
Increasing last mile connectivity. All right. I think most of you have already finished your undergraduate course in civil engineering or transportation engineering, maybe. So a lot of technical terms. Yes, exciting stuff. Land price increases. This is what I'll talk about in a couple slides. Importing, exporting, what I'll talk about next. Yeah, I think this is something that some people underestimate. It's a waste of money, or it's too fast. It's implementing innovative or big, new, exciting, something that has not been tested is important for countries and important for citizens to feel excited, or a part of something new and becoming a leader in certain sectors. And yes, I think most people are coming to terms with the rise of China, the rise of India, and you have to, the development that comes along with that leadership role in the international community is natural, and it's not always about efficiency and effectiveness. I think it's about leadership and taking risks as well. Okay, excellent. Employment, yes, also true. I think a lot of these are specific to HSR as well as in general to infrastructure projects. And I think we can try and distinguish the difference between those with the next examples. Okay, once again, thank you for sharing. Let's see here. Indirect benefits from the framework, again, we're thinking, I guess you can think at this level how things outside of the organizational scope start impacting your system, how you respond to these externalities. And you can also argue that you can benefit those external stakeholders, and that's why these things have to change. Your system has to evolve this way because of these policy differences, these regulation issues. Society is changing, or market conditions have changed. And you have to evolve your system and develop it, and so that you can operate and maintain it properly, so that you can respond to these conditions. A very, very strong example of technology spillover happening in Japan would be disaster mitigation, disaster management technologies. Because of the very real and everyday risk of an earthquake occurring, the high-speed rail has to be prepared to respond to a deadly earthquake that can hit at any time. Because of this social context, and arguably a market condition that you need a technology solution to this social problem, the rail companies worked on developing early warning systems, sensors to detect an earthquake very early on, and rapid signaling so that they can send that signal to the railway stations, and then stopping the appropriate train to prevent a derailing accident. Okay? So this is what we have here, the overview of the automatic ATC, they call it, the automatic train control system. You detect the preceding train location. Where's number 2? That's not. You send the movement authority, you detect the current location, and then you figure out how safely they can actually stop. This train has to stop at a safe distance from the previous train, obviously. So it's not just about stopping the train immediately, but it's also about sending that message to trains behind them. Yeah, I think these are all seismographs that are along the coast, the eastern coast of Japan that you'll see. And these are all constantly monitoring or sending signals and sensing signals to the outposts. Yeah.
So, yeah, just wanted to add. So in Japan, there is this concept of automatic train braking, where basically you detect the presence of the train ahead of you, and based on that, you generate what is the safe braking distance, and you apply brake automatically. Now, the same concept then gets integrated with the earthquake detection. So there's a deep underwater sea like cables that they're put, where they detect the primary onset of an earthquake trigger event. That wave travels, that information travels much faster to this system of automatic braking than the secondary wave of the earthquake, which is much more devastating, right? So in that time difference between the primary and the secondary wave, they are able to apply the brakes and reduce the speed considerably. Now the network cable that the Japanese railway companies have laid out then also becomes an interesting data point for normal person who is not even traveling on the train, but it actually becomes the part of the Japan's nationalized network of providing this earthquake early warning system. So in Japan, if the moment you are on a Japanese phone network, whenever there is an earthquake, you will automatically get a trigger before you actually gets the bigger wave hitting. And they rely on such kind of network that have been actually created by private companies for their respective applications. And also, in general, like in Japan was the first one to have this automatic train braking principle. They were the world's leader to innovate that technology. And that spills over to many, many different sectors was the point that I just wanted to emphasize a little bit more clearly. Yeah.
Okay. All right, excellent. Yes. And again, so organizationally speaking as well, it's integrating the need identifying the need, developing the technology, and then integrating that technology into the existing services, and how do you use that information, or how do you implement that technology. This is also part of the integrated system that we're talking about. So Japan has naturally become a technology leader in disaster response and disaster sensing technology, simply I think because of the demand is there. We need those solutions, and they back it up with the R&D that's required to do it. Other economic spillovers, somebody mentioned, well, we have to import the technology right now, but we start using it, we start studying it, we start trying to manufacture it ourselves, eventually you'll become an exporter. I believe India Metro is now an exporter. They've started exporting cars. China is now a net exporter of their, or not net, sorry. They export high-speed rail as well. Japan is trying to export high-speed rail technology as well. There is your Prime Minister and the recently assassinated Prime Minister shaking hands. This top sales strategy is a very big part of the Japanese government's infrastructure push, not just in high-speed rail, but in other sectors as well. This is a picture of the Taiwan high-speed rail. So Japan also exported their technology for the Taiwanese, and China has made all these deals with other countries as well. Although apparently it's not going too smoothly in some of these other countries. But the deals were made, and but plans are still progressing, albeit somewhat slowly. Okay? So, I mean, India at the if India Metro can be an exporter in a couple decades, obviously, I think Indian Rail, high-speed rail, it's a story that will naturally follow. Geographically, you're situated and very advantageously, I think, central. Yeah, there's a lot of potential there for technology transfer and then export, I think, in the Indian context as well. The spillovers are benefits, and so if we flip the coin, again, they are potentially risks that are associated with these spillovers. Like somebody mentioned, the story that could happen in India for importing and then developing local capacity. What happened with the Chinese engineers was definitely that story, where they were importing lots of the technology, but it went hand in hand with the local capacity building, and the engineering knowledge was supported and developed early on in 2004. So when the first line was launched in 2008, even before they launched the line, they decided to invest and spend time on capacity building for the domestic capability and domestic engineers. And so that's a big part of the success of their ability to go out and sell and export high-speed rail technologies. India Metro, yes, exporting their coaches right now to the global market as well. I'm not sure about what kind of mechanisms or policies might be in place right now for the Indian HSR stakeholders to also basically set themselves up to take advantage of this opportunity, I suppose, in the near future, for them to start exporting high-speed rail services and experience to other countries once. Well, I'm pretty sure first it'll be national expansion though. Like there's so much work to do within the country though. But in most construction companies, you'll find that you don't want to just spend 100% of your resources on domestic business. You want to invest at least 10, 20, 30% of your resources on international business, I think, for portfolio diversification, for example. Yeah, there's an argument behind at least spending some time, even though the priority is to expand the domestic network. As an organization, you could say, but 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we'll immediately have to start competing internationally. We should start and be prepared for that, because yeah, 20, 30 years is actually a lot sooner than it used to be, I think. Okay. Another land use spillover, somebody mentioned land costs. Land cost is, I would say, the direct impact that it would have, a measurable indicator of the value behind what actually happens is that these large stations become a hub for industrial, like you said, tourism, commercial activities, residential services, anything. This is one of my favorite. I think he's an artist based out of Japan, but he hand draws how complicated Japanese stations are. So this is Shinjuku Station, which I just mentioned, the highest capacity local train servicing station in Tokyo. What I believe is 2 million passengers a day. I think they service. So it's the main local connectivity hub for various regions within and outside of Tokyo. Yeah, this is a rotary for the station above. City Hall is on this side of the station, and the entertainment district on the other side. But multiple lines, multiple companies, all connecting at this one station. It's very deep. I have to get on the escalator maybe 9 times to get to my line, the Toei Oedo line, which is one of the subway lines in Tokyo. It's very, very, very deep. On an unrelated note, you would assume that Japan uses BIM if it was this complicated, but we don't. Because it's too complicated to use BIM, is what I've been told. So there's no building information. At the top, at the coordinated level, we can't model this in one file as of yet, I think. Okay. And so the public sector realizes that this is a value proposition for landowners as well. There's a lot of old land and also old buildings that they want people to refurbish or people to move. But if you have large plans for a station, this is what Tokyo Station did in essence for renovating and rejuvenating a central part of the city. Say you want to build a big station here, and you have some land that you want to clean up and make this area a little bit more organized. You offer these landowners the rights to use the land later on. This is what it's going to look like, but this is how much land value we project will go up, and this is how much we expect foot traffic to go up because it's better. And so this is what we're offering. Can you give us the land? That's part of the land negotiations here. So these people will all, if they agree, they'll move into the land area and it'll be divided up more organized into commercial areas, parks, or residential areas, and then it becomes the urban planning professionals will come in and design a much more effective or efficient or valuable area. Okay. It's a win-win-win for everybody in the developer's perspective. Local government will get better services, updated services, more people, more revenue, more tax revenue. Residents get to live in more modern, updated, safer, seismic standards go up and things like that. They have to live in newer facilities, and same with the railway. More people coming through, more revenue coming in. Okay. If land prices go up, it doesn't mean everybody wins, because it also means it's expensive for people that can't afford to live there. So that's also an issue if you want to think about, what's it called? Gentrification is also a social issue if you don't want to exacerbate inequality. I think that will definitely be a problem for India, I guess, once they choose stations and there are a lot of residential areas, maybe even informal settlements that they have to figure out how and where people will be relocated. if they start construction. But this is just a good example of how you can, even in the planning and conceptualization phase, you're already talking to the stakeholders and asking them to buy into this idea to get on board the development process. Yeah, Tokyo Station is very beautiful now. I mean, negotiating with landowners does have its transaction costs. It was very difficult to negotiate with everybody around Tokyo Station to come up and finally get this project completed. But now it's a very beautiful open space in the heart of Tokyo. So this is prime real estate. There are lots of office buildings here and little vendors that they had to negotiate with to just clear it out, make a public space for people to come. Now it's a beautiful tourist area. People will come here just to take a picture of the nice original station, inspired by, I think, the Dutch Central station, main station as well. It looks quite similar if you've ever been to Holland. I met some of the architects that were involved in the reconstruction. Japanese architecture is very, they enjoy conservation as part of the rebuilding process. So they try to save as much of the original materials as possible. This brick was from the original building. This post no longer safe, so we had to get rid of it, but we've sort of put it here on display to show a lot of the history is still living, even though it's a new building. So the building redesigned and reborn, but not completely re-identified. They try to keep a lot of the identity of buildings in place in a lot of rejuvenation projects. Yeah, so you'll have a taxi rotary here for people hopping on. And this is where the high-speed rail line and 5 or 6 local train lines and 4 metro lines, I think you'll see. Oh, there's another slide coming up with that next. All hidden underneath this station where you can't see.
So I just wanted to emphasize one more thing here. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with floor area ratios. Basically, urban development that becomes an interesting concept. Basically, on a piece of land, let's say 1 meter square, how high can you really go, right? So there are legal limitations, and urban planners will set that up. But in Japan, there's a very interesting mechanism between, so station you can see is a very long space, but not very high. So they have a lot of vertical capacity, which they can actually sell to the buildings next. So in the region, in the total region, the floor area ratio is still average, but low density of this can be transferred, the property development right of that could be transferred to a building next. So that enables like really nice high-rise buildings and skyscrapers coming right next to the station, and that can be converted to hotels and all. So sometimes it feels like, I remember when I first time heard about this, I'm like, this is straight away collusion, working with private companies, just giving them money to make a lot of things. But it's interesting that, as Professor Maimura was mentioning, that it's the local government, the local people, the company, the railway company, and the other businesses, they all plan it together. So the benefits are shared. It's not like directly favoring to anyone. So this is a classic question. Anyone, when we take Indian Railways officials to, they're like, how can you do this? This is so much profitable for railway companies. But there's a proper mechanism, and arriving at that benefit sharing is a challenging process also. But it's very interesting that it can happen in Japan very nicely. Yeah.
Okay. And you're looking at, what is this? You're looking at the south side of the station, I guess. So it's basically a circular ring in central Tokyo you're looking at, and Tokyo Station is somewhere in the middle. And on that side, on the south side, you'll see all these tall buildings. On this side, on the south side, you'll actually see another constraint is that that's where the Imperial Palace is. And so you can't build too high because you can't look down on the emperor. It's the visual You're not allowed to have a clear line of sight. It's a security issue, and you're not allowed to build too high right up to the emperor's palace. So you have a block of high rises on this side that you can't see, which are exactly the same height as well, because they're not allowed to build much higher. It's another interesting little Japan-specific rule. Yeah. Other Japan's, one of the professors I work with, his professor was part of the design committee here. What do you think there's symbolism behind these green patches of grass? What do you think this symbolizes? It's a very simple concept. What he told me was these are paddy fields. Japan is a rice-eating country, and the farmers are important. He said, "I want paddy fields in front of Tokyo Station," and that's the design went through apparently. So that's what happens when you become a powerful professor, I think. And also you have these trees, ginkgo trees, lined up all the way. So this is a big straight. The center of the station goes straight, bang on, hits the Imperial Palace, and it's a very, very long road, flat, very straight line of sight. You'll see nothing hindering the way. And then you have ginkgo trees lined up all the way across. Same thing, the designers wanted sakura tree. I don't know if you've seen the cherry blossoms, pictures of cherry blossoms in Tokyo or in Japan. Some of the designers wanted them to plant cherry blossom trees so that people could enjoy the beauty. But again, political symbolism. Cherry blossom trees are for the people, but ginkgo trees symbolize power and authority. The University of Tokyo is actually surrounded by ginkgo trees as well. Any national university, a lot of government buildings, you'll find that they usually plant ginkgo trees. The natural property is that they're less they burn less than some of the other trees apparently, so it's also a fire retardant mechanism. But the symbolism, associated symbolism now is that authoritative institutions have ginkgo trees, and so you can't plant that many. They were told, don't plant so many cherry blossom trees next to the emperor. It has to be authoritative, so they had to go with the ginkgo trees. But I highly recommend, if you're ever coming to Japan and I host you, I will take you here for sure to show you the station. Very beautiful. Okay. So you have valuable real estate, land value is going up, services are getting better, tourists are even coming in because it's so beautiful, easy to access, and it's clean and safe. It has an impact on the business. JR is now making, every year they make more and more money from non-transport related businesses. So JR West, and JR East, which is the station that I just showed you, or no, that's JR Central, sorry, or East. But every year, percentage of, this isn't even revenue, but this is percentage of their total operating income. More and more of their total revenue a percentage of it is coming not from transportation, so to say, but for leasing the space, or providing services within the commercial space, and real estate, hotels, commercial areas, and everything. And again, this will, in some countries, as well as in Japan, this will become a risk, like Professor Nikhil is saying. As a railway company, and you get to negotiate with specific private sector people for the rights to develop or use land, that could be, you can be accused of corruption, or who to approach first, or how do you agree on who gets the benefits. You have to be careful with those arrangements and ensure that a fair sharing mechanism is in place, or else you can contribute to inequality and unfair business practices as well. So that's just around a single station. Another spillover effect you'll have is that many people mentioned, people from other cities or the neighboring states will start coming in. You can have regional impacts from a larger scale, not just the local lines, but interstate or intercity. People from other places will start coming, and that changes the land use of your city or of the city that is being developed. More people coming in, more people staying, land changes. If services go up in response to that, once again, even more people start coming because the activities or travel demand will increase. If India Rail or Japan Rail decide to offer more services and more supply to answer that demand, then that will feed into even more accessibility, and it'll keep looping into the system until the demand is quenched. So tourism might be a short-term decision, but once it becomes an actual option for people that are living in different cities, you actually consider living somewhere else, long-term mobility decisions also become part of the picture. Okay? Short-term, like I mentioned just now, this is a service that the Japanese high-speed rail offers to foreign passport holders to support the tourism industry. You pay a flat fee and you get to ride as much as you want. So you can see the whole country with one pass, and that helps short term. It helps stimulate regional economies as well. But long term, we have transport economists as well as transport engineers that have found that over the long term, the Shinkansen, the high-speed rail line, has fundamentally changed the demographics of some of the cities in the country. All right, bigger cities got bigger, and smaller cities got smaller. So unfortunately, it wasn't purely sort of an efficient or balancing distribution mechanism. The stronger got stronger. Some of the smaller ones got a little bit smaller. So arguably, some inequality was exacerbated through this. But some other people might say efficiency was achieved from a regional perspective as well. So here you're looking at the size of the stations, and you're looking at sort of a circumference of about 15 kilometers to see what regional effect it has. How do I read this graph here again? So here's Tokyo.
Basically, it shows that Tokyo became much bigger compared to the northern part and then some of the western Japan. They actually ended up losing population.
All right. Okay, so not just high-speed rail, but even the stations themselves and how many people they used to service. Yeah. So you're seeing some growth. Level 1 meaning the larger, and the red will remain red, but in other regions you're getting smaller and smaller. Level 4, level 5, like blue or green. And that ties into the discussion we were just having about fast trains only stopping 3 times, but some of the local trains might stop more. How do you decide who gets a station? And what does that mean for the people that live there or the people that want to go there? Those are important questions that have to be addressed. Right. This is saying a similar thing, but so if people move, so does knowledge. This is from a study by one of the transport economists that we've worked with that was trying to measure spillovers in terms of knowledge. So if high-speed rail makes mobility between these 2 industrial centers easier, then the talent and the knowledge and the people, human capital, should also be mobile, which means the knowledge sharing should happen. And so let's try and measure the knowledge redistribution as well. And he found that there was a measurable effect of connectivity on patents, for example, originating from these places. High-speed rail was found to support increase in knowledge production via the number of patents being registered. The effect was stronger in upper middle income country or economies with high urban populations. And the result from these regional studies suggests that the effect of HSR on regional innovation in small towns and villages is larger than that in large cities. Yeah, I wonder why. Small towns, even though the effect was stronger in middle economies with a high urban population. Okay, so it's the size of the city matters as well as, I guess, the distribution about the urban rural. So yeah, it's hard to share knowledge in a rural community if everyone's spread out, right? So urban cities help not just with the density, but people talk to each other and people run into each other, and knowledge is also shared.
Indicate a little bit on that. So this is a very new concept on what is the effect of people moving around and knowledge sharing, and that leading to patents and economy thriving. Like innovation, of course, drives the economy. And there are many things like now a lot of studies have come which have identified the impact of Zoom calling on number of patents getting developed, because it's ultimately about collaborating, communicating, sharing your ideas. So travel, easy travel makes it accessible, but then there are so many competing different technology interventions. So this is what perhaps is happening. In the smaller towns, it's the transport access is much more dominant effect compared to in the larger cities. Transport is already good, but then other services, for example, good internet and good cafe system and all those will actually lead to better impact. So of course, it's very new area and not beyond my topic, but there are a lot of non-linearity there. But yeah, it's an interesting point that long-term knowledge impact could also be created by allowing people to talk to each other more.
All right, excellent. So, this is an exercise that I think is interesting because I've thought about it a lot. And I want to see what it's like for the Indian students to consider this, theoretically speaking. So to give you some background, so if connectivity or travel options or mobility change, your choices change, right? You have more choices. Some of the colleagues I work with in Japan, they live in a different state. I have a colleague that lives in Kobe, which is in Western Japan, which I just showed you, 500 or 600 kilometers away. So I looked up Google Maps. So the equivalent of living in Coimbatore, but working in Chennai. Okay, so this is what one of my colleagues is doing. It's a 3-hour train ride, so it's a long train ride, but it's a high-speed rail line, so he gets a seat, it's reserved, so he can do work on the train in the morning and work on the train in the evening on the way home. And it's semi-remote, so he only has to come in 2 or 3 times a week. So I looked up the price last week, and it's about this way one way, or this much, 8,500 rupees one way. So 1,600 rupees both ways, which is expensive, but the University of Tokyo will subsidize travel costs up to about 20, 25, so about 15,000 rupees per week, approximately. I forget what the rule is exactly. But anyways, I think he'll spend maybe about this much per week out of his own pocket to travel. But 2 things, his wife works in Kobe, so he wants to live with his wife. That's a very strong incentive. And also, he can save more than this on rent in Kobe as opposed to living in Tokyo, because Tokyo is a very expensive real estate market, and he can save much more than this on a monthly basis, considering if he lives in a nice big apartment in Kobe, right? So I was wondering what kind of options, that could be a lot of options, theoretically speaking, for you. Say you want to work in a specific city, but what if it became possible for you to get there in an hour, get there in 2 hours, get somewhere else cheaper in 3 hours? I want to think about what theoretically, what kind of options you would consider for a commuting option. Okay, so I think there's two things you have to decide to come up with these theoretical scenarios. You want to tell yourself how much time are you willing to use to commute. 1 hour, I can do 1 hour every day. No, more than 2 hours, I will not spend every day on traveling. Some people can do 3 hours, maybe some people, maybe not so much. So once you decide that, that's one's constraint, right? You're not willing to spend more than this much time traveling. And then you think high-speed rail will make that possible, right? If you can spend 3 hours, what is it? Mumbai Ahmedabad is 2 hours if the high-speed rail is completed. Chennai to where? Where is 2 hours away from Chennai if a high-speed rail is constructed, or wherever your hometown is? Try and think about that, and then think about how much you're willing to pay for that service. And then the second step would be, well, if it's cheaper to live there, actually maybe even if it's expensive, I'm willing to spend this much to commute there because it's cheaper to live in that city than this city, right? So it becomes an additional option for where you want to live. Okay, so does it sound doable? Like this is just a thought exercise. Once again, it's not homework, or we're not grading you on this at all. I just want you to try to grapple with the first principle of time. Like, this is how much time I'm going to spend, period. I don't want to spend more than 3 hours traveling, or 2 hours traveling, or 1 hour traveling. And then you think about the technology development might make it possible for you to travel further for that amount of time, the cost, or the time cost. And then you think about how much, I would live in that city, I guess, because it's cheaper to live in that city. And I could spend money just commuting instead of living there, okay? And then I think this will just be fun to talk about amongst yourselves about where you live and where you want to live. And then I'll just ask for a couple people to share maybe some cities and some locations that they would actually reconsider living there if it was possible to get there very quickly or very cheaply. Yes, understood? Is it okay? Do we understand what I'm trying to get at? Okay. All right. So I'll say we'll say 50 minutes or so, see if this problem seems doable, and then I'll ask you to share amongst yourselves and also share with the class. Okay? All right, thank you. So we'll say 15 minutes. I'll check in about 15 minutes, see if you need more time. 15? Oh.
We have to cover a lot.
What is it, 5, 6? It's 5. Yeah, I think I'm okay. 1, 5. Yes. Or yeah, spend 10 minutes and then start sharing in 10 minutes with your neighbors, and then I'll ask somebody to volunteer to share their scenario. Okay. I think I hear this group making very specific calculations. What is do you want to share what kind of calculation you're trying to make? Yeah, sorry, it's a very abstract question, I know, but I wanted to try and understand the Indian context a bit from your perspective as well. Just share the current state of your calculations, and just explain what you were trying to calculate.
We thought of planning. First, we thought of planning from IIT Madras to his hometown Tirunelveli or Madurai and all, which was not possible. As for per day, for per trip, it was 8,500 you have mentioned.
Oh, really?
So we were thinking like it is not affordable for the salary package. So we cut down that salary should be increased. Sir.
Sorry, but which area were you?
So now we planned like IIT Madras to Velur.
Where is that?
Vellore. It is like 141
here?
kilometers.
Yes. Okay.
So as Vellore cost of living is comparatively less than Chennai, so we can travel from Vellore to IIT Madras. So we planned in that way, and we have estimated the time as 30 minutes.
Okay.
Like Vellore, you got.
Okay. So 3 hours by car without traffic. Right? Yes.
So if we choose HSR, it will cut down the time as 30 minutes. So in half an hour,
Yeah.
with the given time, we have estimated this. Like for 500 to 600, it was mentioned as 3 hours. So we thought like in 30 minutes we can travel to Vellore. So if I'm staying in Vellore in 1 BHK, it may cost like half the rate of cost of living from Chennai. So Chennai near to IIT Madras means it will cost like 8,000 to 9,000 like that. So if I'm staying in Vellore, it will be half the price. So I can stay there. And we thought like all the 5 days, if I want to travel, it won't be possible. As the cost will be higher for the travel. So we thought we can travel for 3 days.
Okay. That's good. Hybrid.
Yes,
is good.
hybrid.
Yeah. You don't even have to travel anymore these days with Zoom. 2 days work
3
from
days
home.
we will work from office and 2 days work from home. Like that we planned. So for a month, it was costing 61,500
Okay.
for the whole thing. So basically, we need a package of 2.5 lakhs per month.
Not feasible?
Yes.
Feasibility report has been rejected. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's good. Very interesting. Okay. So would you say this is one of the relatively smaller towns and cheaper cost of living?
Nearer
cities?
to Chennai.
Yeah, nearer to Chennai. Okay. All right.
Because Pondicherry cost of living is also higher. It is also like 143 kilometer like that distance. But there is also cost of living is higher. So comparatively, Vellore is lesser.
Okay.
The main thing we considered is we can spend 1 hour for traveling.
1 hour. Okay.
So half an hour for coming from Vellore to Chennai and half an hour for Chennai to Vellore. So totally 1 hour we can spend for traveling alone.
All right.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, for example, as you said in the question, 500 to 600 kilometers is like South Tamil Nadu, Madurai or Tirunelveli. So it's near to 600 kilometers. So a traveling time alone, it will take to and fro will be 6 to 7 hours a day. So we have to see our daily life routines, everything. So it will be difficult. So we chose Vellore as an option.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a higher units value of time cost compared to my colleague who's willing to spend 3 hours. 30 minutes
So
is
if
acceptable?
it's a sleeper class train for us, it's okay. Only sitting is not comfortable for us.
Okay. How about this group? Did you have a higher 30 minutes? Was their constraint? Well, the person who just explained at least. What was here?
So, sir, we were discussing a scenario between the existing bullet train which is proposing between Mumbai to Ahmedabad. So, suppose a scenario where I am living in Surat and I need to go to Delhi for a Mumbai for a job commute. So, it's a distance between around 275 kilometers, Surat to Mumbai.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, please continue.
Yeah. So we did an analysis in two bases. So we'll start with the time. So suppose in Surat to Mumbai, normal train routes takes you of 5 hours. Okay. And if it goes to a bullet train, then it will take a 1.5 hour. So imagine a scenario where I am living in a highly costed real estate in Mumbai. And so I also need to, if I am stayed in a Mumbai, then there will be a daily commute charges in a traffic congested area. Okay, so that impact. And if I choose to travel via HSR and I'm living with my family in Surat, that have its own benefits to stay with your family and all. It will take around 1.5 hours to travel and some point of to reaching the station and all. Okay, and one thing is, if I'm living in a Mumbai which is far from my family, and also I'll be paying a high real estate footprint prices, high traffic congestion, I will stuck in the traffic and all. So we are thinking of that benefit. Another thing is, if I know that I need to spend daily 1.5 hour on the HSR, then I will use that time in some of the productive measures rather than to those traffic congested hours. I can spend in the productive. So one this time duration we are thinking. Other is cost benefits, like suppose my salary is around 50,000 and okay, so time benefits, it is showing a feasible to use the HSR, but in terms of the cost benefits, in the cost, it is right now seeing unlikely, because suppose in Indian context somebody is earning 50,000 and they are paying, if they are living in Mumbai, then they are paying 25,000 around real estate, food and all the transportation. That the money they have is more 25,000. But suppose I choose to live in Surat, then the daily transport is increasing if I choose the HSR. So one potential solution will be like somebody need to bear that cost of a travel, either your employer, either from a government subsidies. So those things will happen. Time wise it is showing feasible, cost wise not. So if somebody external will bear those cost, like one example is like I am daily commuting, so there might be a monthly pass system where government can give a subsidy or your employer can bear that pass for you, then it sound feasible.
Okay. Yes. Excellent. Yes.
Thing for it. So when we are doing it like an analysis, there are some like tangible and intangible. Like say suppose cost and time is one aspect, but second aspect is for that like when you're going closer to your family. So overall, like if you're staying on a rented house and all, again the food expense, the food is also from out. Like the health issues also comes. So when you're with your family, your mental health, your physical health, everything is maintained over there. So that is one kind of a trade-off like which you're doing. Like as long as it is a break even between your existing costs which you're paying, like if you're living in the nearby area to your workspace, just to save your costs, like not even save your costs, like say suppose Mumbai if you're staying and you're from Bharuch or something like that. So Surat when you're coming over here, so Mumbai, if when you're working the like internally in Mumbai also with the traffic and all, you minimum travel time is 1 hour anywhere you go, like even if you're near to your thing or something like that. So over there in Mumbai, minimum rent also for even on sharing basis and everything, it's 25,000. Like if this thing. So if a person who's earning 50,000 monthly, almost 50% of his salary is going in rent. After that, there is travel, there is food, and all those things. But same thing if you're getting in high speed thing and you can go to your family, you can stay and all. So it helps in that way. So there are a lot of people actually staying in like where there are construction projects which are going outside. Like say suppose a person living in Mumbai, he goes to Bharuch and for his construction project. So most of the time people who are doing here, they will be from Monday to Saturday or Friday in Bharuch, and then Saturday weekends they'll come home for having the family time. So that could be catered one way.
Okay. Yes. Excellent. Thank you very much. I think you have been very cooperative in this abstract exercise. So, yeah, what I was trying to just, help you think about the options change if your means of transportation change, and it has a big impact on how you can decide to spend your time, right? And if you're commuting to work, it might be a different way of spending your time commuting to work, but maybe you want to spend more time with your family, which it means it could create that option. Maybe you want to spend more time away from your family. I don't know. That could also be an option. the whole point is that the mobility or the accessibility option is there for other people to use for their diverse needs and demands. Okay, thank you very much. So sorry, I forgot to mention in this other slide. So something when they designed this line, well, the Shinkansen line, when they were connecting Tokyo and Nagoya, I think one of the things that they were expecting were that people would move to the cheaper city in Nagoya. But what ended up happening was people actually wanted to come to Tokyo more. People were in Nagoya were like, oh, we can finally live in a big city, aspirationally. So they all left the smaller town and went to Tokyo and started going back to Nagoya sometimes. So the regional competition still also matter. Aspirations and identity and the city charm, so to speak. Oh yeah, in Kyoto, they ended up staying. It worked. People were commuting away from Kyoto, but the local population still stayed. So some employment options expanded for them because it's a very beautiful city in Western Japan. Yeah. Okay.
Actually, if this happens in real, if this happens in real, like the people are traveling to their home back, even though if it is very far away, there will not be urban development at all or urban expansion. So maybe in one side it will be a positive effect for the farmers or agricultural landowners, so their lands will not be getting depleted or used by the real estate peoples. On the other side, if you see, the urban area will not expand at all. It will be shrinked or it will be as it is. So it is having both kind of effects, I will say. So if this HSR, if every people is accessible and they are using in real time, if it comes to hand means, then there will be no urban expansion itself. See, because there is a need to stay in this city, so only we are not having enough space inside the heart of the city, so we are expanding our land area of the city and we are constructing the satellite towns, satellite cities like that. If it is there is a chance to go back to your home, even though it's far away from 200 to 300 kilometers, no people will like to get a land here or to like to stay here, right? So urban development will not happen, urban expansion will not happen. That may be a positive side for the farmers or agricultures, because there will be the most hated peoples if urban development is happening.
Okay. Yeah, I think it depends on. There's also arguably another market of. So those are for the people that have family they want to see far away. Yeah. There's other people that just want to move to the city, and if it becomes more accessible, you can tap demand from other places as well. But yes, exactly. It is a trade-off. If nobody wants to stay in the city, why would we stay in this traffic every day?
Yeah,
I can go home to my family. Right? That would be nice.
I chose to come to stay away from the family.
Do you want that on video for the whole country to see? Yeah, I flew away from my family.
No, but
in
it's
Canada,
important to emphasize that on a population, it's what you are sharing is your personal experience, but population is huge and very diverse, right? And it's not easy for everyone to make even a commuting choice every day. Like it's 3 hours, yes, sometimes maybe you can put use to good productive, but it is fatiguing for a lot of people. So, and immediately closer to having access to your home versus if you plan now, 3 hours later only you will reach. You cannot even have a 15-minute delay at your work. You need to precisely leave. Or many factors. It's very complex problem. It's not a very simplistic problem. And these micro decisions will govern the population's behavior. So, the famous effect in Japan is like they planned it that, okay, people will stay in Nagoya. So if wherever you are staying, you are actually going to spend more money, more time, because that's where more consumption will happen. But people ended up moving to Tokyo. And in fact, now there are a lot of municipalities in Japan which are incentivizing, which are actually paying the money to families to shift to their locality, right? So it's become a very severe problem because a lot of people have just moved out and towns are deserted, right? So, And of course, in Japan, the another context is it's a shrinking population problem. So in general, the number of people living are also going down. The population has come down by 10 million, I think, in last couple of at least 5 to 6 years. So it's a significant decline. And so yeah, will it happen to India? Not happen to India? It's very complex problem. So there's no straightforward answer. And we don't want to oversimplify this argument also. It's a very complex problem that a lot of people are studying even now. Yeah.
But one thing for sure, we know it will definitely have an impact, and it's from a researcher's perspective, it's interesting to think about. But yeah, it's millions of people will start moving for different reasons. It's gonna have a huge impact on the country, and that will be interesting to see. Here's an interesting example from my home country. Canada is going through a housing crisis. Nobody in the middle class can afford houses anymore. And Vancouver is one of the most expensive real estate markets in Canada. There's was he an international student? Sorry, I forget. But anyways, this guy decided to he takes a plane to class every day because it's cheaper than paying rent in Vancouver. So it's very real. It's happening. So the LLC model for flights is making this actually a possibility for students. It's $2,000. Yeah, he would otherwise be spending on rent.
These behaviors are very difficult to capture in your conventional demand models, right? These are very like a new scale of urban emergence, and how does it impact the transport needs. So these are the risks. Ultimately, the slides were to give you an idea of the risks and benefits and how transport demand would change. And these are real impact on transportation people that they need to worry about. Yeah.
Place. So now there also development can occur, right, sir?
Yeah.
So that probability and possibility is also there.
Yeah. So see, that's again, I know how it was going into these kind of arguments, but let me just say. So there's a whole lot of literature which just says that just because you've created station, it is not going to lead another round of development nearby. You have lots of stations in India. Lots of metro stations gets developed in India with the hope that once the station is there, immediately new things will emerge. They require a lot of planning, right? They require a lot of arranging of different incentives. And this is a very fundamental debate during the planning stage of high-speed railway, whether to create a new station within the city or should you create new station outside, because within the city, the growth opportunity is smaller because of the land availability. But outside, technically you have larger growth potential, but then it takes a lot of efforts to actually do that. And there is a whole urban planners consistently study these patterns. What conditions favor station area development, what favors, what cannot allow. And there's a whole lot of literature. And some of the books that we have referred in the beginning, they actually talk about it. What are the good models of station area development, what are not. So it's not obvious is what I wanted to leave you with it. And it's not directly replicable or copyable from any country. What Japan has been able to do, Europe has been struggling. What Europe has been able to do, Japan is struggling. Lot of intricate relationship that we need to understand. Yeah.
So in that way, many places like Pondicherry or like that, many places are there in around Tamil Nadu itself. So I asked that question. It may be developed there also. That city also will be developed like that.
Needs planning and understanding.
And adding on to this example, recently I've seen a news in Malaysia, a woman who is working in a company, she is traveling for 2 hours in flight to reach her company and coming back to see her family daily.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's a recent example, I will say, apart from this one, which I've seen in the newses.
Okay, so that's also a cost calculation, I guess, for freight. Not very safe, but.
It's traveling from one part of Malaysia to another part.
Okay. All right. Yeah, excellent. All right, thank you very much. I get it. Sorry, I have to move on. Okay. All right. Okay, sorry. This is another example of so HSR. We just talked about this. So it's not just about the stations on the HSR, but how do the people access those stations? So connectivity to other regional or local lines is very important. This is just a graphic of how many stations there are within 15 kilometers of these 3 HSR stations in Japan. And this, it's not done alone. We don't just decide to build the HSR here. You do it you share information with your competitors as well as your collaborators to figure out where would be the best place to, what's the best for connectivity for the Eastern people, for the Western people, North, etc. This is part of the planning stage. That picture I showed you of the hand-drawn picture was Shinjuku, but this is Tokyo Station for the successful HSR line in Japan. This is how many local lines and subway stations intersect in that one station. So 4 high-speed rail lines, 6 local train lines, and then 5 subway lines. All use this one station, and then so they just explode everywhere regionally. We mentioned a bit of Europe is struggling with different problems. The EU is a union, so they are all about negotiation on a central platform, competition, but also regional connectivity and interoperability. So I would say the focus here is accessing the high-speed rail lines that enable you to connect to any EU member country. So that this means a lot of effort goes into standardization and making sure we can go smoothly from one country to another from a technological standpoint, right? This has other spillovers again into the export sector because you standardize things well or you coordinate very well with other markets. Naturally, you have a product now that can be sold very easily to another country. So very good for the exports. You have over a dozen countries working with various slightly different practices. So safety, reliability challenges are very, very apparent. Something it's very natural, but if you think about it, it's kind of obvious, but just simply language barriers in operating these services will affect communication, affect technology development, and everything. And so safety can be a problem. I think India will also probably have that problem with how many official languages, I guess. I forget, but over 100? Like 22 official languages and hundreds
700 plus.
700 plus local languages. Another very important characteristic of the European market is how the colors are gone. How the organizations are structured. Like we mentioned, the Japanese system it's privatized, so the train operating company negotiates with the government for the rights, but they have the rights to use and operate as well as maintain the facilities, as well as the rolling stock on top. In Europe, you'll have a different model. It's vertically separated, meaning the government owns the tracks, would be a simplified way of saying it. Sorry, I need to refer to my slides here. Government owns the tracks. They usually and then they lease rights to operate the rolling stock on the tracks to various companies. And operation and maintenance it used to be maybe done in-house by the government, but recently would be outsourced to another company. But they have to create a company for operation and maintenance that does the operation and maintenance for the government or the owner. Which could be either a direct government entity or a state-owned company. So these divisions of organizations create, it's on one hand, it clarifies who is responsible for who. You as a company, you're in charge of operation maintenance or maintenance. So it's clear what my mandate is, right? To keep it maintained. You own the tracks, so your mandate is just to keep it as valuable and as long lasting as possible. You are in charge of operations, do whatever you want, as long as you're making money, making those, offering your services. That is one of the advantages of separating it, your organization, or the multiple organizations involved in a complex system. The problem happens when a vertically separated system, if gone unmonitored too long, you'll find that organizations at some point, their incentives can become misaligned. Okay? You have a lot of people trying to use the tracks. Infrastructure use will put pressure on the amount of maintenance you need to maintain your tracks. That if you don't maintain your tracks properly, it will degrade the quality of your assets, and then that will have a negative effect on how much people can use your tracks, and so on. As a company operating the tracks, you'll have more money, depending on how many people use the tracks, and that will give you the resources to help and maintain or keep the health of your assets up. But if your job is to only maintain the quality of the tracks with this fixed amount of resources, for example, you would be incentivized to be efficient. Use as little resources as possible to maintain your tracks to the minimum standard for as long as possible, rather than being proactive or spending extra money to figure out where unassumed risks might be. This mismatch in the use, revenues for maintenance can lead to poor maintenance. But if your train operating company is a different company and they just want to maximize revenue, you're constantly going to have more infrastructure usage, but you'll have cost savings on infrastructure maintenance. And the longer that happens, the more and more you're likely to just see a gap between the required maintenance needs and the resources that you can use to do it, and the demand that is being constantly quenched through the incentives of the train operating company. Safety concerns will come up. So in Europe, there are various accidents that you've seen that have directly resulted because of this. You outsourced maintenance. In-house capabilities to monitor the health of your tracks went down slowly over time to a point that they couldn't keep up with the maintenance backlogs anymore. But the companies were just running as many trains as they could, and then an accident happens and it's too late. China, the world's leader in HSR development. So when I asked you to think about how long are you willing to travel as a first principle, right? 30 minutes, maybe an hour or something. That's sort of the ring road type mentality here you'll see in how the network is designed nationally. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. You go out in the hours and you're trying to connect the big cities as efficiently as possible. You'll see this web of connectivity happening in Japan, in China. Central government, very strong national push and priorities by the government to get these projects through. Very open to import the technology and spend the big bucks to get the technology in there and then develop it locally to start selling it within not even 2 decades. But a massive debt, $300 billion investment originally, so the national debt is ballooning. But this is, China has a lot of debt in other areas as well. But when the public becomes upset about public debt, that's when it is an issue. So, as mentioned before, only one of the lines is generating enough revenue to actually be considered a profit, considering the initial investments. But on a net scale, that yes, they are probably going to be an exporter of the technology. Right? So very different context, so much more experience, but the central planning as well is coming out in this network, and also the technology development as well. Just the rapid rate of technology imports and how much money they spent on the investment, and immediate implementation of the high-level technologies from advanced nations, including Japan. From a safety researcher perspective, this created another risk, which was overconfidence. So you're using the most advanced technology in the world. It's proven, it's tested. Let's just get it on and get it operating. You expand too fast, and unfortunately, there was a train collision in 2011. Design of fail-safe systems, safety redundancies for the communication systems, and lack of coordination among the operators that were there. Just trust the technology, not too much communication happening. And just in general, I would say the corporate culture of a fail-safe advanced technology, combined with political pressure, which some people have talked about. We have to get this project rolling. This has to be operated quickly. And some checks and balances may have been overlooked, and unfortunately, there was an accident. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like I said, so in Japan, advanced technology, but huge emphasis on the coordination between and human to human communication. So that's part of the safety management that you didn't see happening here, with too much trust in just the technology. No. Did you have any you want to add about the Chinese accident, about system?
Yeah, so one of the perspectives that I want, it's very interesting accident from an angle that the technologies that they were trying to import were already well-established systems, right? So it's not that something new first time was being developed in the world, unlike like we were discussing Hyperloop example. But still, and some of these technologies have been working fantastically well for more than 30, 35 years in different countries. So that kind of led to a belief that these technologies are fail-safe, what we call fail-safe, that even if they would fail, the situation would still be in a safe condition. And that, of course, the details of the accident are there in the article that we have mentioned here. It's done by me, but it also leads to a belief that the role of human is not as important, because you tend to rely a lot more on your technology to do the work for you. Precisely what is happening for ChatGPT. Like a lot of the, we are losing that critical thinking ability, because the basic task of summarizing text and everything is taken care by machines so nicely. And that belief was not only at the ground level, but actually in the people who were making decisions. And that led to a lot of issues of not enough preparedness of, in case the technology fails, what to do, what kind of things. Ultimately, that's at the heart of the accident. The precise mechanism of who did what and blah, 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 will not go into that. But this strong belief that we have to recognize that even though high-speed railway is very advanced, mature technical system, but ultimately it's a socio-technical system. Humans are constantly interacting, and there are always limitations of a technical system where human has to compensate. And this becomes very critical when you are relying on importing the technology, because you can import the technology, technical standards, but how the local human behaves around that is very context specific, right? And that you really can't predict very well in advance based on previous other experiences. So this is just to highlight these systems, no matter how sophisticated they are in terms of technology, ultimately they are involved in human. Human is integral part of it, making various decisions, making various interactions, and you can't just forget them, is the perspective that I wanted to highlight here. Yeah. But if you really are interested in accident investigation details, the link is there, or I can meet you later. Yeah.
All right. In Taiwan as well. Taiwan is sort of a unique case. Something we didn't mention was, yes, HSR is expensive. And one way to do it is to borrow a lot of money, either from your own people or maybe from the international market, capital markets. And another popular method for infrastructure and public services investment is public-private partnerships. So maybe we can use the private sector capital to help bear some of the cost of infrastructure investments. And so the Taiwanese high-speed rail project was the first, a very early example of the use of a public-private partnership, meaning leveraging private capital for infrastructure investments in the world, not just in Taiwan or China. So there was a BOT agreement in '98, build, operate, transfer. So you build it and then you operate it for so over many years, and then after 20 or 30 years, give it back to the government, and then we can own it after that. Construction began in '99. 2004, the first train sets, the rolling stock, were sent by Japan, and they started operations. 35-year concession, so they had 35 years to construct and operate, and 50 years to develop station-specific zones. So already in this planning, they considered the development value, the land value capture, they call it, of the HSR lines. So you're not just making money off the operations, but we will give you the development rights to either develop commercial or real estate around these areas, right, for 50 years. That was part of the deal for the private sector, because those are the investors you're asking for. So most of the time you'll approach real estate or those kinds of financiers when reaching out for infrastructure investments from the private sector. Construction finished and operations started in 2007. And then the Lehman crisis happens in 2008, dissipates all over the world, a global financial crisis, interest rates go up, it's the financial risk once again hit this project very hard. At the same time, demand risk was not, or projected demand was not actually being achieved. So early on, they were losing money, not paying the interest, It was quite negatively perceived politically and in the general public. It was a massive national project with huge support all over the nation. So it was one of those instances of too big to fail. Okay, we've already built this, we've already imported all the rolling stock. What are we going to do? The government had to step in. They couldn't let the project simply fail, so they infused capital and bought the majority stakes again. So there used to be a private company that was in charge of the operation before transfer, but now it's a government entity once again. So it's interesting, right? Like what I said, it's different from the Japanese context. It's actually the opposite. Renationalized, even though it was initially conceptualized as a private endeavor. And now the concession was extended from 35 to 70, so double the time to try and pay back the investors. And now instead of the private investors, the government now is retaining the rights for developing the property around each station. So rather than the Japanese case where private companies were given the rights, you give the private companies a chance, and if they failed, but there are some other the global financial crisis was also unfortunate. But if the private sector in your country also cannot manage risks properly, you are liable to have your company renationalized and your rights taken away as well. The government can do that. So for India, I guess it's not a relevant story now, but in the future, whatever happens when governments start negotiating either commercial or development or operating rights with private sector entities, that'll have an impact. Okay. What we're seeing now is that since the government has taken over basically of this service, arguably you're seeing political risk. If you have 70 years to think about business, it has a very big impact on things like depreciation or having a monopoly on the service, so very little competition. It might degrade services over the long term. The thing about public-private partnerships is you want to show that it's successful so that private sector investors want to participate in future PPP projects, but if you have a contract with non-terminable conditions, it could very much de-incentivize private operators that are involved. And yeah, any innovation or private sector-led diversification that might have been possible before with relatively flexible or free development rights could be limited if it's handed over to government, which usually has to focus on public service, availability, or those other priorities that any public agency has. Okay, so the policy implication we were trying to make in this paper was that yes, in terms of the project failing, public intervention was necessary, but thinking about the Japanese model of service efficiency and innovation and development and continuous service improvement, we should be careful that you need to also protect the autonomy of the operator in terms of decision making if we want the service to continually improve. And I think since writing this paper, it has improved. I just recently saw the news saying they are breaking ridership records every year, and it's going up. I'm not sure if they're on schedule to be profitable yet, but ridership has gone up and people are quite happy with the services, even though the price has fluctuated in response to these risks. Alternative risk-sharing strategies that we saw in Taiwan were capital requirements were high in the beginning, and then benefits from the economies of scale were realized after some time. Okay. So what we mean by this is that, yes, HSR is expensive, and yes, so many risks can happen. So it is almost quite likely that from a 10, 20, maybe 30-year perspective, you will be operating at a loss until demand picks up, right? And one way to do it is to just sit there tight and wait for the demand to pick up, right? It's like, okay, we're losing money now, but it might come. The other way is the government or other bodies can help you support. If you know that that's going to happen, it's going to be a couple years of tough, very low profit or no profit at all, for example, or only interest payments. You should be ready for that, right? The support could be there at the early phase of the project. You can lower prices, you can increase frequency, even if you know the service might not be there, to induce later demand. You can experiment with those policy simulations, or you can experiment with those potential policy alternatives. And those are some of the ideas where we want you to experiment with the model, actually, that we'll start introducing to you in the next 2 days. Those are the things. If you have a longer perspective about, okay, we need to make you don't need to make profit on year one, right? 10-year window of payback, 20 years, 30 years, who knows? It depends on the interest rates. It depends on if there's another war, maybe not. But what happens if how about we just lower the price, or how about we just raise the price? What can happen to the demand? You never know on the long term what could happen to the long-term performance of the system or long-term demand or value of your assets. These are the simulations that we want you to experiment with the model. Correct? Is my interpretation correct? All right. Okay. Here are sentences that I think make sense intuitively maybe to you now, but these are also, I would say, key concepts or key definitions within systems thinking, which is the methodology that we're trying to get you familiar with, and system dynamics, which is the technical methodology that we want you to be introduced. We want you to introduce to you. Okay, so I know it's obvious to say this, but it's not as easy to truly appreciate that things are connected. They're interconnected. Okay, there are various system components. It's a very complicated system, and everything is connected to each other. Many of them are connected to each other very specifically. There's uncertainty, risk, and unpredictability in components of the system. You want to control whatever you can, as much as you can internally, but there are external conditions that are beyond your control. You can only control your response to that, right? You can't control it. Sometimes you have to coordinate with people that do have control over that externality, such as government or other industries, other sectors. This makes the system very dynamic. Okay, system states change from the actions of various stakeholders. So you have 100% control in how things are operated, but if the political party changes next election year, maybe your project is no longer, approved. That kind of political risk you don't have control over. But things that you don't have control over have an impact on the things that you have control over. Those are things outside of your system, but the other thing is what we've mentioned recently, or what we mentioned yesterday as well, is that you don't see the impact of your decisions immediately in a complex system. There's so many examples of this, so I'll leave this to the model, but sometimes you'll see an impact right away. Okay, we lowered the price, people started coming. Okay, maybe that's a good idea. But you lowered the price so much that people started moving from Chennai to Coimbatore or something like that. That's something you didn't predict that could have implications on demand from a decade from now. So this is what we mean by nonlinear relationships. It's not one-to-one. Impacts will build up over time, or a small change can lead to a huge behavioral change. Big changes are needed to make gradual increments in impact in the system. These are very intuitive. Once again, you know that happens, but let's try to model it. Let's try to see it. Let's try to put it in a simulation that helps us think about ideas for arguing for these kinds of new policies, arguing for these kinds of rules and regulations as well, suggestions to whichever organization you see yourself working for in the future. Oh, I forgot about HSR in India. Yeah, I think maybe we can start with this a little bit tomorrow, but this is...
To reflect,
Yeah?
Very quick slides.
Okay. These are problems that are facing you, facing the country, facing everybody right now. These are the planned lines here on the left. And these are proposed and feasible lines. What's the difference here, sir? Yeah, okay. I think this is very exciting to see. And maybe 10, 20 years sounds like a long time away, but I hate to say this, but you're young. I don't know. I've never said that before, but I'm 39. I'm still young. I'm pretty young, but I still think I'm young at least. Yeah, 10 years, 20 years. It's so fast. We get to live in an age where we can travel by train, 2 hours from here, maybe 3 hours to Delhi or something like that. I think it's very exciting. And yeah, these kinds of massive projects lead to technological development domestically. Your massive projects. My boss was visiting some of the construction sites here and talking to Larsen Toubro executives, and these huge mechanical engineering endeavors and project innovation, technological development happening. It's a very exciting industry, I think, right now. And we mentioned this a little bit yesterday. Income inequality is still an issue in India, I guess. Developing country from a GDP per capita perspective. But from a macroeconomic condition perspective, it's quite similar to what the Japanese PPP, purchasing power parity from GDP, was similar per person at that time to what the Indian lower middle class, I would say, have in terms of GDP per capita for median income, let's say. So when France developed their HSR, they had much more PPP at the time, purchasing power parity at the time. You want to add something? Yeah.
Just wanted to highlight, so from a macroeconomic perspective, it just becomes like GDP defines your paying capacity, roughly how much price could you afford, what kind of ticket prices would you be able to afford. And the population density in the corridor defines the number of travel demands that are likely to happen. So if you see the European model, it is low traffic density but high paying capacity. So like you deal with higher fares but less number of people traveling. Whereas Japan and Asia is actually very different. Asia is high density in the corridors but lower capacity. So these two models work is what we wanted to, this macro study showed. And it compares the Tokaido corridor is the 1964 of Japan, the first railway line that we saw was a huge success. And this, it maps also the Indian high-speed railway corridor right around that, like the current Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway. So macroeconomically, it seems that it is a favorable condition to build high-speed railway on that segment. Also, if you see the distance-wise and the number of station layouts, Mumbai-Ahmedabad is a distance of 550 kilometers. Japan, Tokyo, Osaka is about 500 kilometers. Equal number of roughly 12-13 stations with intermediate large cities. Like in Japan, it is Nagoya, Kyoto. In India, it is the Surat, the Vadodara. These are major hubs. So like they are macroeconomically, I don't think there would have been a better sector to start Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway project in India. And the success of first one is very important, as we have seen, that allows an opportunity to expand the network. And there are a lot of benefits apart from just people traveling, right? It has more regional impacts. So yeah, it was just to give a context of how are we looking at high-speed railway. So yes, whatever the discussion about long-term effects, benefits that Professor Maimura discussed today, and how they affect the ridership or the society as a whole becomes very, very important and relevant. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So that's okay. So thank you. That's it for today. I just want to imprint this framework into your head, like, connected components of the system, connections, complexity, various risks associated with that complexity. Let's choose a couple of specific risks which I think are easier to model, measure. And so we'll introduce the modeling method tomorrow. And then, so we're going to step away from these kinds of concepts for a second to think about, okay, how do we fit these kinds of concepts into a model that we can try and start measuring and simulating. So that will be tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Any final questions? Anything you want clarification on? We will be announcing the details of the assignment as well tomorrow. So for your certification, please remind us if we forget to do that. Make sure that's part of our job. Okay. Okay. All right. So thank you again for today, and we will see everybody tomorrow. Thank you.
Just in case, like, of course, we'll share these slides and all.